Right now it's a Sal Pal Friday. Sal Paolantonio, brought to you by Dunkin' Donuts. He joins us now for a look at one thing, Sal, we never wanted to have to talk about, which was the loss of Carson Wentz and how this team would be moving forward. But the reality is there. No more Carson Wentz. So, boy, how has that changed things for this team moving forward?
Well, where do you start, Mike? I think the team is, if you talk to players and you talk to coaches, I think the team is still trying to come to grips with it from just a reality standpoint. Carson Wentz, I think, changed the culture around there in so many ways. His ability on the field and his leadership on and off the field were such difference makers for that football team and created a culture there. And him not being under center is significant. You know, there's an old saying in sports, you cannot lead from the bench. And you just cannot lead from the bench if you're Carson Wentz as hard as you might try. And, we've heard all the right things from Doug Peterson about how Nick Foles has commanded the huddle. But we know that Carson Wentz has a different charismatic personality on and off the field that has transformed that team. And so I think they're coming to grips with it, and it's hard.
Yes, Al. I mean, obviously, they're in a unique situation that they have an MVP candidate. You could be, Tom Brady and go to Phillip Rivers, and you're still going to have a drop-off. Is this a precipitous drop-off that they can't overcome, or do you think Foles, going back to 13 when he was very successful, now he's gone off on his journey, has not been as successful, but does he come back in this position as a better quarterback than the one that was the starting quarterback here in the past?
Well, I'm going to give you a comparison, and it's not really a fair comparison, but it is similar in many ways. When the Denver Broncos won the Super Bowl 50, if you remember, Peyton Manning lost his job to Brock Osweiler. Manning was hurt late in the season, and Osweiler came in, and then Manning replaced him in the final week of this 2 weeks of the season, the regular season, and then went on to play in the postseason. And if you were to go back and look at Super Bowl 50, the Broncos won Super Bowl 50 when Peyton Manning attempted 23 passes and had a quarterback rating of 46. So your defense can win a Super Bowl. Your defense, if it's good enough, can carry a limited quarterback, even guy of Hall of Fame status, who couldn't move at all. Peyton Manning couldn't move, remember?
Yes, no doubt.
A statue. He had no arm strength. He was basically a ghost back there. In Super Bowl 50, he was barely competent. And I don't use those terms lightly. He was barely. You could have been just as good bringing Gary Kubiak off the bench from the sidelines as the head coach and made him the quarterback, and you probably would have been better off.
So, Sal, obviously the follow-up is, the last 2 weeks, the Eagles' defense, are they good enough to be the MVP or the star, really?
That's the point. You can win a Super Bowl with Trent Dilfer. You can win a Super Bowl with Brad Stevens. You can win a Super Bowl with Jeff Hostetler. You can win a Super Bowl with Jim McMahon. Go down the list of teams with great defenses who have won Super Bowls with marginal talent level at the quarterback position. And I do use that term specifically. And that's what Nick Foles is. He's good. He's not great.
Yeah, and it was funny because
marginal in certain areas, he's not going to wow you in many others.
No, and when he was in the height of that 27-2 season, he was 14-4. He was 6-2 that second year, Sal, but his numbers were not very good. He did not play very well, but they were still winning, even though he did not play very well. He was 6-2 when he went out.
The question is, Mike, and you nailed it, is the defense good enough?
Yes.
And I think they are good enough to dominate the Giants. I think they are good enough to beat the Raiders on Monday Night Football. I think they are good enough to dispatch with Dallas on New Year's Eve. Then you get a week off. I think they're good enough to beat the first playoff opponent if it's not the Green Bay Packers.
Well, and that would give you home field throughout. Under your scenario, they would have home field throughout. Nick, 8-1 at Lincoln Financial Field as a starter. You got to feel a lot different with Nick at home than you do on the road. And that's where really losing Wentz is a big difference. You go on the road with Wentz, you still feel pretty good. You go on the road with Foles, I think your feeling changes.
Well, I mean, there's so many scenarios, but the point is, now you're in a one game at a time situation, and you got to stop thinking about Super Bowl. You got to start thinking about, really, in my view, I want to see how he does in the first and the second quarter at MetLife Stadium. The game is so much faster than practice.
Yeah.
And he did respond well against the Rams, but he didn't get him in the end zone, not once. He didn't get him in the end zone. So he managed to hold on for dear life. He made a pretty good throw to Torrey Smith to seal the deal. Excuse me, to Nelson Aguilar to seal the deal. So, I want to see how he does. Spagnuolo is going to blitz him off the bus. And if he gets a strip sack, gives the defense a really bad field position, Eli cashes in early on, and the Eagles are playing from behind, and now they've got to throw the ball more, they could get themselves into trouble very, very quickly. If he speeds up his game, and I would invite people to watch the NFL matchup show because Greg Cosell has a great breakdown of Foles and then talks about his deliberate play and how it's too deliberate. If he speeds up his play without sacrificing the football and the defense is good enough, then the Eagles, right now the Eagles need to beat the Giants in the first half at MetLife. That's all that we want to happen. We want Nick Foles not to turn the ball over at MetLife. Big picture questions. I know you want to ask them, Mike, but I don't think anybody has it. I don't think you have an answer.
No.
The fans don't have an answer. I don't have an answer. I want to see how Foles does week one, off the bat.
And I agree. I think it's good for, he played no preseason. He had the elbow problem, and that was something. Well, is this guy going to get any reps? He got no reps. He came in, made a throw to Aguilar, which you referenced. But the fact that he's got a couple of games that, let's be honest, are not playoff-worthy teams, he's going to get a chance to at least get the speed of the game in games that aren't against Minnesota's and the Saints defenses. This is about as good as an opportunity that the Eagles could have laid out to get this guy prepared to play some games.
Yes, and I want to see his arm with that elbow.
Yeah. Hey, let me ask you this, Sal.
There's so many unanswered questions. I want to see what's the story with that elbow. He had elbow soreness. He couldn't throw the football for the whole month of August.
Right, and played no preseason because of it. They're swearing up and down that they're not going to change the offense. Very minimal. You buying that?
No way.
So who's it? Ajayi?
I want you to. Here's what I want you to do, Mike Gill. You go from Dunkin' Donuts to Dunkin' Donuts in South Jersey, and you ask that question, just like that. Everybody's going to look at you sideways like you came from another planet.
So
of course not. We're not buying that. They got to change it.
So who benefits from this change? I know Wentz kind of did a great job of spreading. Ertz and Aguilar had the big seasons, but who benefits from this change? What changes?
Well, you mean from a fantasy standpoint or from just a production standpoint?
No. Who does Doug lean on now? If he leaned on Wentz before, who does he lean on now?
Listen, let's hope Ertz is healthy. If Ertz is healthy, that's going to help Nick.
Yeah.
That's the number one thing.
And he did play with Ertz in 13.
You got to remember, their left guard's hurt and their tight end is hurt. So, I mean, people think they're just going to be able to roll the football out there and beat the Giants. No, they're not. They're not. They're definitely not.
I know you were talking big picture here, but for this particular game, This Giant team can't run. They got no receivers. Their secondary's a mess. They don't rush the passer. What worries you?
Nick turning the ball over, being dumb with the football, not feeling the rush, getting strip sacked. That's his calling card, Mike.
Yeah. Well, we know this.
Not feeling the rush, getting strip sacked, and losing the football or throwing an interception. That's the number one worry of everybody.
Sal, what was the mood in L.A. after that game?
Bittersweet, anger. They feel like, their chances of winning the Super Bowl initially, I think. But, there's a rant online, a Malcolm Jenkins rant. I don't know if you have referenced it to your listeners, have you?
Yes, I did see it, and I thought it was quite interesting.
What do you think? How would you interpret it?
We're more than Carson Wentz.
Yep, exactly.
By the way, Sal Pal ESPN on Instagram. Check that out for the instant analysis. The matchup show on ESPN 2, 8:30 a.m. And Dunkin' Donuts wants a prediction from Sal Pal. Will they be drinking dollar Dunkin' Donuts on Monday all over the Delaware Valley?
Yes, I would say they are, for sure. I'm going to go with the Eagles winning 24-13.
24-13 Eagles. Don't forget tonight, $700. Pick the perfect score. That's Sal's score, 24-13. And Sal, we're here at Golden Nugget today, so your instant analysis is being heard all throughout the Golden Nugget here in Atlantic City. Everybody is standing around listening to your analysis of this game with bated breath, I know, as we're waiting for that Dunkin' Donut dollar coffee on Monday. Always a pleasure, my friend.
Okay, everybody stay safe out there, and I'll talk to you next week.